Hello loves, it's Britt, and in this video I wanted to talk about Pluto square the Ascendant in Synastry. And this video was requested a lot. I don't even know if it was the same person requesting it over and over again, or no, I think it was a few different people requesting this one. So I wanted to come on here and do it because of these requests, and also it's really hard to find information, specifically like in books, like in my favorite Synastry books, they don't go into the Ascendant. So yeah, I really wanted to talk about this because, the Ascendant is probably one of the most important points in your natal chart. And also, especially in Synastry, because, we've got the Ascendant, which is the first house, and then the seventh house, which is the Descendant, which really represents all types of relationships. So it's very, very important in relationship astrology to look at the Ascendant. Now, Pluto squaring the Ascendant is not necessarily a bad aspect to have. So I find that squares to the Ascendant are not so difficult as squares to other planets, because if you think about it, and it's not always this way depending on which house system you're using, but like just in general, the Ascendant is square with the fourth house and the 10th house, just naturally, because of those archetypes there, right? And it's not always like that if you're using other house systems. I use Placidius, so it's not always exactly square, but actually mine are in my chart. Maybe it is always square. No, sometimes people have a different midheaven that's actually like trine their Ascendant, whatever. Anyway, so, but naturally there is just more harmony there, because when you're having a planet square the Ascendant, it's going to be, maybe it's in the 10th house or the 4th house, and there's kind of a familiar energy with that. But with Pluto, it's always going to be a little bit intense, right? So Pluto is the planet in our natal chart that represents where we are really intense and compulsive about something. It's where we need to transform in our life. The Ascendant is someone's natural mode of expression, how they act, how they respond to situations, the first impression we get from them, and also a lot about their soul path in life, the energy that they need to embody in order to really get where they need to be going. And it sets up the whole chart. So it's potentially the most important point in the whole chart, really. I mean, they're all important, but the Ascendant is very important. So with this contact, you're going to find that they do really notice each other, but it's not necessarily loving like Pluto Venus or Pluto Moon. It doesn't always indicate like they notice each other and it's like a loving feeling. Sometimes it can be a more threatening feeling with this one. And what can happen with all Pluto Ascendant aspects, but specifically this square, is that the Ascendant person starts acting like the Pluto person, or starts, they feel powerfully affected by the Pluto person, so much so that unconsciously they actually alter their behavior to become more like the Pluto person, or to become more like what they think the Pluto person would like, because the Pluto person is this very powerful force on the Ascendant person's life. And the Pluto person feels this way too. They really do feel something strongly about the Ascendant person. It doesn't have to mean love. In this case, we have to look at other things going on, but the Pluto person is strongly noticing the Ascendant person. And in some ways, the Pluto person can actually be kind of like turned off or irritated by the Ascendant person's behavior in some way, because this is a square. So there's tension here where, the Ascendant person is acting in such a way that maybe the Pluto person feels is unacceptable or uncomfortable or triggering for them, or just very different than how they would act. And that could be different depending on, you know, what is the Pluto person's ascendant. Maybe they have ascendants trine or conjunct, but then Pluto's squaring one of them. So like there could be other things going on. But generally with this one, there is a bit of an uncomfortability where, yeah, the Pluto person can be kind of judgmental towards the ascendant person, but also at the same time, like kind of jealous of them because, you know, maybe the ascendant person is way more free-spirited or way more like naturally outgoing, or like there's something about their outward personality that the Pluto person can envy. And then the ascendant person envies, or it's not necessarily envy, but they notice the Pluto person's power, and they feel that power that the Pluto person has, and they can want to modify how they're acting in order to gain that approval of the Pluto person. If that Pluto person is someone that they desire approval from, they can just sort of unconsciously, want to act more like. So we can see behavioral changes with Pluto ascendant, but specifically this one, and sometimes this can manifest in a more negative way where, you know, maybe the ascendant person didn't really need to change, and yet they did because of this relationship, you know. So you have to look at it. But then if we have other, you know, more positive things going on, the transformation could be welcomed and the transformation could be needed. But you got to look at everything with this one. It could end up being just a very minor aspect in the relationship. I actually feel that, you know, if you've got other stuff going on between, you know, Venus and Pluto and Sun and Moon, and you got a lot of stuff going on, this one is not like it's not something that's going to make or break the relationship. It's going to add an extra layer of intensity and probably attraction and maybe a little bit of annoyance at each other at some times, but it's not like, and in my opinion, Pluto ascendant square here, it's not necessarily the biggest deal ever. You know, it's not, it doesn't feel to me like a huge issue, although those are the issues that I mentioned can happen, where we're seeing aspects with the ascendant like this. The personalities become very transformed by this aspect, and specifically the ascendant person. So it kind of depends on where the Pluto person is at with their level of like handling their plutonic force, right? Like, are they using it to control and manipulate people? Is that what they're doing to the ascendant person? Are they trying to, you know, change the way the ascendant person acts in order for them to become more comfortable? You know, like in a relationship, this would be like, well, you know, why are you acting like that? Why did you say that? Why did you wear that? You know, like, I want you to wear something more like this. I want you to speak more like this. It's like that could sort of come out here. And then, you know, the ascendant person would feel like the Pluto person is bossy and, you know, not accepting them for who they are, right? So you have to look at everything that's going on here. It doesn't have to manifest like that, though. It could manifest in a more loving way where the Pluto person is just like, oh, you know, I noticed that you kind of act like, you know, you're Leo ascendant, and I have a Scorpio Pluto here, and I think that, you know, you would do well to integrate a little bit more emotional intelligence in the way that you act, or something like that. Like, it could manifest like that. So I'm just speaking from experience. So I have my Pluto at 29 degrees of Scorpio, and dependent on whether his birth time is accurate, my late husband would have had his ascendant in a later degree of Leo. So, and I do feel that his birth time was accurate because it really set up the chart in what I feel is quite accurately would describe his life. He's now on the other side. But anyway, so I kind of noticed this as like, yes, and sometimes his Leo placements would just be out there, you know, Leoing. And that made my Pluto in Scorpio a little bit uncomfortable. Like, you know, oh, like, you know, maybe don't be quite that open or quite that loud, you know. I'm trying to, like, you know, be intense over here, and you're like so freaking extroverted out here, right? But I got my Moon, Mars, and Leo and Aries rising, so other things would overpower that. But there was the subtle undercurrent of of that sometimes going on, right? But you have to look at, you know, the Pluto, what sign is it in and what house is it in, right? And then, you know, what is the ascendant trying to do and what is the Pluto kind of off put by what the ascendant is doing. And then, of course, the people involved, you know, are they more loving or are they more controlling, manipulating, and could this potentially be toxic, right? But I do feel that, you know, this one, just because of what I said about squares to the ascendant, it doesn't necessarily have to be bad or anything, but it is intense and it is not necessarily loving, right? You have to look at other things that are going on here. But this relationship will transform you in the way that you act and the way that you perceive life and external circumstances will be transformed by this connection. So yeah, anyways, I hope that was helpful, you guys. I'll try and do the opposition too was also requested. That one's a little bit different. That's yeah, a whole nother story. See, I like to go into each individual aspect because they're not the same, you know, like even the sextile and the trine, like those always get lumped in together, but it's not freaking the same. It's not. It's slightly different. And I'd like to go into each, you know, separately, which is a lot of videos, but that's why I have a lifetime to be doing this, right? So anyways, hope this was helpful, you guys. I do offer one-on-one sessions. My links are below. I offer a Synastry session where we can talk about your relationship. And then I also offer a personal natal chart session as well. So yeah, I'll be back soon. Love you guys. Thanks for watching. Would love to hear your experiences of this one as well. Okay, bye.